are so many musicals that you could have selected for your first directorial foray into that area. What was it about West Side Story that made you say, this is the one that I want to do?
Well, I think we all have personal loves about movies we've seen and
Mm.
musicals we've seen. I've had a personal affair with West Side Story from the age of 10 when I first heard the original Broadway cast album that I've never gotten out of my system. I basically took that little contagion and brought it home to me. And as my seven kids grew up, they were all memorizing the lyrics and performing the songs in the kitchen, in the living room, in the backyards. And this has been in my life for my entire life. And I've always wanted to make a musical and could not find a better musical to make than the original West Side Story. It's just a extraordinary, contemporary, and timeless piece that actually is more relevant today than it was in 1957 when it was first written by Larry Bernstein and Arthur Lawrence and Stephen Sondheim and Jerry Robbins.
So Rachel, joining this cast, becoming a part of this project,
Mm.
your casting was a dreamlike scenario. If you
Yeah.
could take everything that you've experienced at this point and go back in time to that moment right before you hit send, what would you tell yourself? What would you say?
I would say it's going to be a long year, but it's all going to be worth it. I auditioned for a year. I went in 8 or 9 times. But it was truly the greatest journey I could have gone on through the auditioning process and also through the rehearsal process. And obviously, when you're filming something so huge and marvelous, it just fills your heart with such joy every day and reminded me every single morning, every single night shoot, why I love to do what I do.
So Stephen, you made the decision to include Spanish as far as no subtitles into this version of the story, which I thought was amazing. Can you talk to me about that decision and how the cast responded when you shared that information with them?
Well, the first decision was that I wanted a complete Latinx cast for everyone playing a shark, boy or a girl. And so that was the first decision. And because of that decision, which was made even before the first script was written by Tony Kushner, this was going to be this was going to celebrate the diversity of West Side Story. Mm-hmm. And it needed to be the authentic West Side Story, meaning everybody had to be real. And they had certainly have to be all descendants from the Latin American world. Mm-hmm. And so the next decision, of course, was how much Spanish will be in the film. And Tony Kushner felt very liberal to do a lot of Spanish in the film, to have a lot of Spanish in the picture. And then it was our decision together that we would not subtitle it, mm-hmm. out of respect for the language. It's our second language in this nation. And why should one language, or the majority language, provide a crutch for the second language of our country, which is Spanish? Mm-hmm. And let the people who see the movie, who speak the language, laugh in places no one else will get. Mm-hmm. But none of the Spanish is so foreign in terms of the way the performers enact the words. You know what they're saying. You can feel what they're saying. You don't have to understand the words to understand the intentions and the drama or the comedy of what they're talking about in Spanish. And we just felt it was an absolute necessity not to subtitle the Spanish.
And so in wrapping up, this question is for both of you. Bringing Rita Moreno on not only as an executive producer and a performer, Rachel, I'd like to know what she shared with you about your special moment coming in. And I want to know, Stephen, what was your inspiration for creating the character of Valentina and changing that aspect up?
Yeah, I mean, Rita Moreno was the reason I think a lot of us who took part in this film ever thought that we could do something like this. She was a huge pioneer for Latinas in the industry and for Latinas in general, achieving her dreams the way that she did. She faced a lot of struggle, and she was very open with us about that and talking about the realities of this industry, being a young woman, but then also being a young Latina. So that was inspiring and a gift in and of itself. And she was just, she was a force to be reckoned with, whether she was in front of the camera or behind the camera. If she peeped in on rehearsals, she was dancing, she was laughing, she was sharing anecdotes from the first film, but also sharing the tough moments, which for me, as someone who was just entering this brave new world and taking my first few steps, It was something that I really needed. And it was an honest wake up call from someone that I've respected my entire life. And so to be able to turn to her and call her a friend and a mentor is something that I do not take lightly.
And for me, it was just that Tony Kushner wrote the screenplay. His husband, Mark Harris, suggested that we change the character of Doc. We actually say that Doc passed away, and his widow, who's Puerto Rican, is named, and whatever you choose to call her, we chose Valentina, is Rita Moreno. And that whole package came to me in a phone call. Tony called me, heard the idea from his husband, called me up and said, Mark just had this great idea. What do you think about it? And it was a masterstroke. There was absolutely no way I wasn't going to get her on the telephone and beg her to be in our film after that.